All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the May meeting of the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Commission. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order. As always, we'll start with the prayer and pledge of allegiance, and Eddie Miller has agreed to lead us in that. Eddie?
Okay, thank you, Dee. Please bow your head. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all our many blessings. We ask that you help us use our blessings to help those that are less fortunate. Help us to make good decisions for this community, and in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Eddie. Everybody should have received their packet earlier in the week, and contained in the packet were the minutes from our April meeting. This time we'll entertain any changes or corrections that need to be made to the minutes, and if there are none, a motion for approval.
I move for approval.
Thank you.
I second.
Thanks, Gloria. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. We'll move now to new business. Item number 1, Thomas Laird's going to go over a consideration of fee changes for adult softball. Thomas, welcome. Thank you.
Members of the commission, as you know, recreation costs keep increasing. I know you guys see that on an ever-increasing level, but with increased costs of staff and the various components, we've realized we're not competitive in terms of our softball fees, and we found the city's subsidizing a lot of the costs of that program. So we went back and looked at what we could minimize the city's portion of subsidizing the program and get the cost up to where we can provide this program. It's a very high quality program. Looking at areas, the fees are substantially higher in different areas, Smyrna, Nashville. And so we'd like to increase adult softball from $450 per team to $500 per team. So it's a $50 increase, and that would take effect this fall.
All right. Any questions of Thomas regarding this?
How many teams do we have, Thomas?
We're limited to only 60 teams in the spring and 60 teams in the fall due to our limited field space. So we max out. This year our league was full within the first week of registration opening.
Wow. Any other questions?
Does this pay increase put us where we need to be, or are we still going to be operating in the hole?
Well, what we haven't included in here is some of the indirect costs, field preparation. If we weren't doing adult softball, we'd have youth programs, so we didn't count all that in there. I think we can bring this to break even, and it certainly will help.
So you don't think you'll be back next year asking for another increase?
Well, our goal is to try to operate for 5 years. The last time we increased fees was 5 years ago, so we try to do as minimal fee increase, and we'll come back to you in 5 years and try to get to where we need to be at that time. And that helps us stay with the current trends in terms of what pay officials are being paid and what we ask teams to provide themselves, what we provide. Currently, the teams provide their own softballs, so we don't have any equipment costs outside of what our staff needs to operate.
Good question. Any others?
Kind of piggybacking off of that one, with a lot of talk currently about the West Park options, one of the primary goals of new fields, which would allow us to grow the program as a whole. The funds or the fee increase applied for, or not applied, but are they sufficient for those adjustments as well?
Right now what we operate is what we would consider a truly recreational adult softball program. While we may have competitive divisions, they're not the travel teams or those out competing. If we had adequate fields, we would offer a whole different levels of play. So we would probably stay in line, maybe a small increase in 5 years for a recreational program, but if we had the field space, we could offer competitive leagues and tournaments and different things, which would come with a whole different fees and charges. So in the event we're able to build an adult softball facility, we'll align fees and rates and bring those to the commission at that time to accommodate each level of play that we're offering.
Do you know, Thomas, I know you said that Metro and Smyrna were charging more for their league fees. Do you know roughly what they are charging?
Yes, I think it's in there. Smyrna charges, I believe, $595. Metro is upwards around $650.
Okay, yeah.
So $600 per league is about the standard on an average across. I think we can offer ours at $500 because we are integrated with the other parks. Now, we get to a sold facility. That may not be the case anymore, but because the indirect costs are shared among the youth leagues, we're able to operate a little lower than other areas.
Bill, you got a question?
Thomas, how many fast pitch, slow pitch teams do we have? How we?
We have 60 slow pitch teams. We don't currently offer fast pitch for adults, so we have 60 slow pitch teams, and they range from the men's competitive to church softball. That's probably our biggest division in the spring is the church softball. And then in the fall, we'll offer 60 teams as well, but a good portion of those will be co-ed teams.
But no fast pitch.
No fast pitch at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, typically the fast pitch is your more competitive players, the travel teams, things like that. And, if we're able to build a facility, we'll certainly move into that market.
Any other questions?
Dee, I'm looking at the prices that obviously Smyrna and Franklin are charging, and it seems that although we're raising the rate, I'm questioning whether we're raising it enough. I mean, it looks to me like maybe $550 would give you more revenue funds. I don't think it's going to affect your supply and demand at all because I think your demand's still going to be the same. It's just going to be $50 more to throw into the pot for each team.
Hey, we're all for that. We try to raise rates
and I don't
to
want
beat
us to be doing this again next year, I guess is where I'm at.
Right.
So would it be okay if I were to amend that to $550 rather than $500?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to make the motion that the request be amended to $550.
And I concur with that because whatever you do, and I don't even like to bring this issue up, as city taxpayers, we pay city and county taxes, and we have some county residents that have the same access to our services that we do. So when you're calculating the fees or services, you need to take into consideration there's some percentage of that money that you to compensate for those folks that are not paying taxes and have access to the same services we do at the same cost, if it makes sense.
How many are on an average softball team? I know that there's 10 positions, right?
Typically, most teams will carry about 14 to 16 on their actual team, but we allow up to 24 on the roster itself. That allows for injuries, especially adult softball injuries. Small injuries that prevent you from playing from week to week often occur.
My back. So raising it by $100 per a team is only raising per individual easily less than 10. Now, the question that you also brought was the free agent price. Right. Are we good with the free agent price? I think it was $60 per person.
Right, and I think we'll be fine with that because if we have to formulate a free agent team, then if we get 10 players, which is the minimum it would be to play, then we would still generate $600 in revenue for that. So any extra players that would come on that would help out. The hard part about what we do is we hit individuals all the time, particularly in Murfreesboro, where folks move in on a regular basis and they play adult softball where they don't have any contacts or anyone to play with. So we're trying to place them on teams. And the hard part about that is then now here's a new coach that's asking a new player for monies to help cover team costs and uniforms. It would be much easier for us to absorb that $60, place them on a team, provide them with the uniform, say their team fees are already taken care of, and And also we could formulate free agent teams also.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any other discussion?
Do you want to vote on the amendment first?
Yeah, I was going to follow up with that.
Well, can we vote on the amended motion? Yeah. So the motion as amended.
Okay.
We can do that, right?
Right, there wasn't an original motion on the floor.
No. So we will be voting on the amended motion that Eddie made.
Raising it by $100
For
per
$550, correct. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Is approved. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Thomas, keep you from playing musical chairs. Would you like to do your other one while you're
Yeah,
up?
well, go ahead.
We'll jump to item 3. Thomas is going to cover a consideration for a professional services agreement for athletic facility lighting.
In our CIP, we've added in there to light some additional facilities, and as most of you know, we've contemplated lighting fields at Siegel Park for what we consider the youth complex, or Phase 3. Those fields weren't originally lighted, but it was always in the master plan to get lights at that location. The same thing as well as the Old Fort Tennis facility. The 16 outdoor courts, 8 courts were originally lighted. Conduit was placed with the anticipation of lighting the 8 additional courts. We've talked about it several times here at Commission, but we've asked Lowe's & Associates to give us a proposal to do the A&E for these projects so we can try to get lights in both facilities within the next several months. Any questions?
Within the soccer with Siegel Park, we call those the upper field.
Right.
The refs, that's 4 fields. What's the motivation for lighting them at this time, especially with the addition of the practice facility on Cherry Lane?
The practice facility, of course, does not have lights right now.
Right.
And that's our largest shortage of athletic fields, is lighted fields. Because as well as you know, soccer starts February 15th or even earlier for high schools, and they like to play all the way through December if we let them. And so when we're putting that many teams on the fields in daylight hours, that's a huge strain on the fields themselves. If we can spread that out, we add 4 additional lighted fields, we're able to spread those practice times out throughout the day rather than consolidating it down into 1 or 2 hours. But the biggest issue we have in terms of lighting, we have city schools we've allocated as practice for rec and for various places, which are adequate until you get into the late fall and early spring. Once daylight savings times makes that change, rec practices are no more, basically. So by lighting those 4 fields, that'll allow us to move things around, keep our game fields in really good shape, but also have some practice space at Siegel Park for those non-daylight hours. And then anticipating future growth, when Cherry Lane is widened, we hope to be able to light the 6 practice fields that we're putting in at the Jordan Farm. So,
with the lighting of the fields, I guess the question in my head is it philosophically more for the practice? We're not really concerned with tournament usage.
We're not trying to up our selling value to the
Right.
tournament directors. They're beating down our doors. Now, of course, it will help the tournament directors out considerably to have additional lighted fields, especially if you have weather issues or situations that you have to move things around. But the practice is the biggest thing. Both our soccer organizations' select programs are growing at a tremendous rate. And that's their number one issue, is the lack of lighted fields. We've also expanding other sports, lacrosse, and now we've got cricket. So the McKnight facility is seeing more and more usage from non-traditional sports. And so we like to try to get soccer at our soccer facility and have them playing under the lights there as well.
Do you know how many teams practice soccer at McKnight? I know that it's been a lot while the fields have been recuperating.
Well, we've got, I think there's 8 teams that utilize that, travel teams that utilize that for practices. But we also have a Hispanic league that plays there as well. They play Saturday afternoon and on Sundays, and they've got about 30 teams in their league. So it's a significant amount of soccer still being played at McKnight Park, in addition to the Murfreesboro Mayhem lacrosse organization. We have cricket now. YMCA utilizes those fields out there for their soccer program and flag football. And then in the fall, of course, we have our tackle football and flag football as well.
Good questions. Any others?
What type of lighting, Thomas? Is it
Well,
LED or?
yes, we'll go with the LED. It's the new Qualight lighting, and it's a bar type design, so that they're flat bars, but there's multiple, so they spin around the poles. It's really a neat concept, and to be able to adjust it and redirect light will be so much easier than what it's been in the past. Our plan is to light that entire area. Those of you that are familiar with the soccer, the pie at the top of the fields, it's not big enough for a regulation field, but it fits a smaller field. We're hoping to light the entire perimeter of that four-field area, because there's a lot of space in between the fields that can be utilized as well.
That's great.
One question, Thomas. I was looking at the recommendation about Lowe's and Associates for both of these projects. Did anybody else make a bid for these projects?
They didn't. We approached Lowe's and Associates simply because they are the architects and engineers, the original ones on both parks. So they're the ones that designed and built Siegel Park. They're very familiar with the infrastructure and the power supply, as well as the tennis courts at Old Fort Park as well.
Right. But does anyone else do that type work, though?
There are others. We try to spread those out. We've got a lot of projects going on. So I know Laney's got Greenway projects, and he can talk of the other A&E associations that do that.
One of the reasons that we looked at Lowson Associates for this, they designed the 16 outdoor courts. They've already got the blueprints, got where the conduit is run, got a lot of the work that if we went to someone else, they would have to charge us to go do that work and replicate the work. Same with the soccer. They were the ones that designed the soccer complex. The conduit was already put in. So a lot of that planning work that would come on the front end has already been done. So that's why we're getting what I think is an exceptional price for the A&E services.
Well, it may be, it may not, you know. Just my thing is it always should be open for bids, you know, just to be fair, you know. Because like I said, it could be somebody out there. And I understand what you're saying, even though they're the architects and know the planning of it and designed it, still could, you know. You'll never know until you put bids out there. Somebody may, you know. You know, it's really tough times for everyone. I'm sure, like I said, maybe a company out there who could maybe do it cheaper than what Lowe's could. So you'll never know until you find out. So.
Eddie?
I know that we just brought 8 new tennis courts online with lighting with the indoor facility. Primarily, most of the reason we're putting these lights up outdoors is for summer use, which is really the time of year that the days are longer and it's light outside in the middle of summer till 8:30, 9 o'clock in some cases, I guess. Are we competing against ourselves by adding more lighted courts outside and not asking those people to come inside and play in the facility that we just built? Or is there that much demand that every one of these courts are going to be full out there on the July?
I think it's a demand issue. What we've created with the indoor, we've created a culture of developing players and players that are tennis enthusiasts. And as that grows, there's going to be more and more demand for outdoor space, because we've only got 8 indoor courts, and those courts being utilized by MTSU during the day. And so, as Gary can attest, that they get heavily utilized now, and the more lessons and the more youth we bring online, the demand is going to become greater and greater. We've already seen that impact with the school usage, because the school usage runs from February till spring fling, with only 8 outdoor courts, the public's only able to access those courts after schools are done. So really, we only have 8 courts from February till May for outdoor usage on the new section.
And how many do we have on the old section?
The old one has 8. We're currently redoing those, so next 2 or 3 weeks they're being resurfaced and renovated. But we're entering into a usage with MTSU to allow them to use the old 8 courts while the Middle Tennessee Boulevard is being renovated. So between the university's usage and the partnership with the county schools, we have a huge demand for lighted courts in the evenings.
I guess I wasn't aware that we were sharing the courts with MTSU, the outdoor courts now.
Well, another thing, Eddie, I think along to your point is in all the surveys and studies that we've had done on Parks and Rec, our number one shortage on a per capita basis is tennis. That's where we are most underserved in facility. So, I mean, I think Thomas is right. I think when we put the lights on them, if you're out there at 10 in the summertime, you're going to be surprised how many people are under them.
Mm-hmm. And coming from a tennis family, for us, it was a rites of passage. If you could play 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night with your parents.
And in the summertime, you do play later because it cools off.
And it's cooler, so that's when you get your best game going.
We know who will be there.
Mr. Smuggler, we don't allow them to take the ball machines outside, so we feel very confident that the indoor courts will be heavily utilized during the summer.
That's how Mr. Ricky Turner learned to play tennis, out there on those clay courts at night.
All right, those are good questions. Any others?
One more short question. Ben, as we're talking about tennis and shortage of facilities, Mitchell Nelson's courts has cracks in them large enough that tennis balls can fall through them. Is there any plans at all to do anything with those courts? Because there's 2 courts sitting there that absolutely are in such poor maintenance that you can't call them courts now.
We're working with the city schools on the school park designs. And I can't recall, but I think there are new tennis courts in that park school design. I know I had a conversation with Dr. Gilbert the other day because in the CIP, what we've done is we've allocated enough money to have what I call phase 1 on one of those as a demonstration project, so to speak, so that we could start that process of school parks and work out hours of operation, the logistics between schools, parks, communities, etc. Look at the access. I know we've talked about sidewalks connecting to those particular areas, but I'm thinking that tennis courts was a part of that.
It was. Tennis court, basketball court, a multi-purpose athletic field, and a baseball, softball field. We're all part of that, plus playground and restroom facilities. And talking with Dr. Gilbert, and nothing has been confirmed, but Mitchell Nelson was one of the schools that we're looking at for the pilot program to be the first school to do this.
And I'm not just pushing for Mitchell Nelson. I'm saying any of the schools that we have that currently
We've started renovating courts.
We redid
That was one of the schools that was at the top of our list for going ahead and starting. Because number one's got a big open space, a lot of utility for both schools and parks.
Right.
So, but good question.
We've done some resurfacing at Cason Lane, Bellwood, and Siegel Elementary. So we're trying to get the schools up online with tennis because we're trying to grow tennis as a whole.
Yep. Good question. Any others? If there are none, we need a motion for approval of the agreement.
I move approval.
Thank you, Lori.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. We'll jump back up now to item number 2. Trevor Hutchison's here today. Is going to talk to us about the Murfreesboro Ultimate Frisbee League proposal. Trevor, welcome.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Murfreesboro Athletics is always looking for the newest and fastest growing sports, not only within the state of Tennessee, but also within the nation. Currently, the game of ultimate Frisbee is one of those sports. The sport is unique in the fact that it is the fastest growing sport in the nation for both men and women. A lot of its growth and popularity can be contributed to its ability to create action, fast pace, with involving teamwork, but also creating the ability for low impact during play. The Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department wants to offer an opportunity to people involved in the sport of ultimate Frisbee a chance to play in a recreationally organized-based league here in the city of Murfreesboro. Some information I have about the league we're proposing. The league will be a co-ed league with ages 14 to 17 years old. League fee is $50 per player. Player evaluations would be held June 7th. Coaches draft would be June 9th. Practices and games are played on Tuesday nights at the McKnight multipurpose fields, in particular fields 1, 2, and 3. And they start June 14th. The season will consist of 7 regular season weeks followed by a tournament matchup week. I would like to propose today that the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department receive approval from the Commission to start the Murfreesboro Ultimate Frisbee League.
All right, thanks, Trevor. Any questions of Trevor regarding this new league?
You said the ages 14 through 17. My 11-year-old's going to be disappointed. He was really excited.
Well, we hope to, in the future, actually go farther down in age and start basing around those 10, 11, 12-year-old age groups.
Okay. Good question. Any others? If there are none, we need a motion for approval of the new league.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Eddie.
Second it.
Have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Thanks, Trevor. Melinda Tate's here with us today. She's going to go over a new dog park proposal. Melinda, welcome.
Good afternoon. Here to talk about dogs. If y'all are familiar with our current dog park, our Bark Park on West College Street, you will know that it is an extremely popular place. Not just for the dogs, but the dogs' parents, I guess, to dog owners. It was built 10 years ago, and since then, it has we've added a section to it because of its popularity. And right now, if you were to go out there on a nice day, you'll see a big dirt area, and on a wet day, you'll see a big muddy area. So it is a victim of its popularity. What we are asking today is that you consider an enhancement to the Cason Lane trailhead, and this will include a decorative 6-foot tall fence. It's the pretty fences like you see in neighborhoods in the front, and the back would be a chain-linked area, and this would be an off-leash area for our four-legged friends at the Cason area. What this would do is not only provide an area for our dog owners to take their pets while we are trying to renovate the existing park. And by the way, we have tried everything in the park. We've tried mulch. We've tried, right now we're blowing straw in just when it gets muddy so people won't get up to their ankles in mud. We've tried filling it in with dirt and it just washes away. According to our new turf manager, the only thing that will help is a period of rest. And if we do that, then we need to send the dog owners somewhere else where we don't want to just shut it down and let it rest. We feel like we need to have another option. So not only would this allow our current park, our current dog park to rejuvenate the turf, but it would also provide a permanent area in another part of town that's close to a neighborhood. We did look at all the parks and properties that we own, and we looked at the location, how much space would be available for an off-leash area. Is there adequate space? Is there parking, restrooms, accessibility to water? Because we do want to put a pet fountain in this area. So just similar services and amenities. We didn't want it too close to neighbors. We didn't want it to back up to somebody's backyard. And just all of those things we considered, and we narrowed it down to the Cason Trailhead. We are looking at the area that encompasses an existing small pavilion, because we all know the dog parks are for dogs, but they're also for the dog owners. And they really like having picnic tables, benches, shelters. At our existing one, everyone gravitates to the shelter that one of our Boy Scout volunteers built. They gravitate to that and the different picnic tables. We do have the money budgeted in this year's budget. It would cover everything that we would need. The fencing, a water line and meter, the installation of the water fountain with a pad, the sign with the dog park rules on it, a mutt mitt dispenser, can't forget that, and a few more trash cans. The only thing that the budget wouldn't allow is the water fountain, but after meeting with our Friends of the Greenway group last night, they are in support of this idea, and they will be sponsoring the water fountain. So it's not a matter of cost, but if we decide to choose to put one there. So I am asking for a permanent location for an off-leash area at the Cason Trailhead, and I welcome any questions.
Thanks, Melinda. Any questions regarding the proposed dog park?
Okay, I'm not a big tennis player, but I'm going to tell you, I like my dog, and he would love a new park, and he would use it anytime it's open. So this is one of those things that there is demand for. There's no doubt. Is there a need for it? Absolutely. And I hope this is not the first of and last that we add to our system, because it's difficult to find locations that are perfect for a bark park, as far as having them the right distance from residents, to have them where we don't have large groups of children generally gathering. It's the water supply, all the criteria that goes into place. It's difficult to find those locations. This seems like a perfect location for it. So I believe this is one of the best things the city pets have heard in recent history.
All right, is that a motion?
I'm good. Question. Okay. One of the issues with the existing bark park is the turf and how it's torn up. The two pavilions, I don't know, I'm looking at the map, I'm not sure which one we're looking at, but the grass around there's not the greatest. It's never been treated for anything. It's never been prepped. Will there be prep work to try to establish good grass there?
Well, luckily, we do have our turf manager who can help us from the onset, recommend what we should do from the start instead of trying to fix a problem later on. So we will definitely get his recommendations for what needs to be done.
So there's more work involved in preparing it rather than just put up fence, put a bench, and there's your new dog park?
Maybe a little, but yeah, not in.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand this, or Melinda, can you hand it back down? This is a layout that Melinda prepared, showing exactly where it's going to go. And it encompasses that small first-come, first-served pavilion, which doesn't get a tremendous amount of use already. And I think this would fit a much better purpose. We've talked with Mr. Lamb, our turf grass manager, about, like Melinda said, the existing bark park. And we've looked at it, evaluated it, and we've always budgeted money to do some improvements out there. But the conclusion comes back to we just need to rest it. So He's going to, I think, come up with a plan to hopefully, as we construct this new enhancement at the Cason Trail, to really beef up the turf and be able to, spread out the usage of the parks. So that's that layout of what we're proposing. We've got all the prices in except for one pricing on fence. And like I said, we had budgeted the money last year or this year to enhance what we had, and we think this would be much more effective use of those funds.
Thanks, Nate.
Now, see, on the proposal, the dog wash area, I may have missed that because I was looking. Is that in our existing Bark Park? I've never taken my dog there. She's inside dog. And
we have a water fountain that's got the pet bowl. This will be a specific to dogs and not a human water fountain, because we do offer a human water fountain at the where the restrooms are at the Cason Trailhead. So this will be a pet bowl, and it will also have a faucet and a little hook where you can put a leash if you need to. So it will be accessible to a short hose if someone needed to hose their dog off.
Is there a divider between large pets and small pets, or is this just a wide open park, or will it be time oriented, or how will you manage that?
To answer your question, there is no divider. What we're experiencing at the existing Bark Park is that people aren't using the areas separately. It's more of kind of a get together and mingle and type of thing. So most of the small dogs already come in that area. The way it's set up is if we feel the need to add a divider in there at some point, we'll be able to do that. But starting off, I think this will serve the need that we have very effectively within the budgeted amount that we had to work on the existing Bark Park, and we'll set loose on really improving that once we can rest certain areas and be able to close that side and open up the small area for all dogs and get that side back up to where it needs to be.
And as far as the fencing, there's a type of fence called puppy picket, and that's where the bottom part, the rails are closer together so puppies can't get through. Well, we are proposing that it goes all the way up. So the rails are a lot closer together all the way up and down, so that we can't have little escape artists. And also the chain link fence will be embedded in the dirt about 6 inches so they can't dig under as easily.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? If there are no more, we need a motion for approval for the park as presented.
I move for approval.
Thanks, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Item number 5, Gary Arbitt's with us today to give us an update on tennis camp.
Good afternoon. I'm really excited to be here today. I wanted to announce that we are going to offer summer tennis camps for youth. The camps will be either half day or full day. Our camps will start at age 5 for the half day up to age 8, and then starting at age 9 to probably a high middle school or low high school age will be our full day camps. There'll be 5 individual weeks. Some of the weeks will be 4 days and some will be 5 days. We did have some other rentals and different things going on that prevented us to do the 5-day camps every week, but I think it's going to be a good idea. And I want to talk a little bit today about the objectives of the camps that we're going to have. Obviously, our camp objective is to produce a generation of young players that will develop a love of the game of tennis, and we hope that they'll continue to play tennis for a lifetime. We feel the key ingredient in fostering the love of the game is to offer fun but with structure. We strive to make activities game-oriented that will not only make it fun for the young players, but provide practical knowledge for future learning. Our camps will be taught in a structured, organized system with manageable student-to-instructor ratios of 1:6 during instruction and 1:12 during point play. Campers will be also placed in situations appropriate to their skill and their age. The knowledge and techniques that we think they'll acquire coming to these tennis camps will keep the young players eager to learn and hopefully put them on a future path for success. information on the tennis camps can be, you can come to the Adams Tennis Complex. We're at 925 Golf Lane, or you can give us a call at 615-546-4000, and we can give you all the information if you're interested in registering your young one for youth tennis camps.
Any questions of Gary regarding the tennis camps? It's been busy out there, huh?
It is busy. It is busy.
It's good. All right. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate you being here.
All righty.
As always, Becky Johnson's going to wrap up our meeting with overview of upcoming events. Becky, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right. The first thing I would like to invite everyone out to is this Friday, which is May 6th, from 5 to 8 p.m., we will have our Barfield Beach Party. We will have over 80 tons of sand, so there are beaches in Middle Tennessee. It's free. It's for all ages. There'll be a DJ, limbo contest, sand castle contest, so it will be fun for the whole family this Friday starting at 5 p.m. at Barfield Crescent Park. Then the next day, which is Saturday, May 7th, we have free swim lesson day. This is from 8 to noon at Patterson Park indoor pool. And this is to encourage people that have been thinking about, my child needs swim lessons or they haven't had any before, right before the summer season starts, to kind of get them evaluated and let them know their options on taking ongoing swim lessons. So if you would like to sign up for a free swim lesson, you can just contact Patterson Park at 615-893-7439, and they will get you registered for a time for a free swim lesson for those ages 3 through 13. Then on Saturday, May 14th, we have International Migratory Bird Day, and that will be celebrated from 7 a.m. to 12 noon at the General Bragg Trailhead. There will be all kinds of bird-related activities, from hikes, photography opportunities, activities, games, crafts, and more. And there is a full schedule available on the website if you'd like to know what times things will be happening between 7 a.m. and noon on Saturday, May 14th at General Bragg. Then on Saturday, May 21st, those ages 9 through 14, we have the USA Track and Field Future Stars local meet. Registration begins at 8 a.m. The track meet will start at 10. It's at Riverdale High School track, and it is free. Then also on Saturday, May 21st, from 3 to 5 p.m., we have World Turtle Day. We will have live music, local vendors, children's activities, crafts, live animals, puppet shows, free Turtle Tracks ice cream while it lasts, and that is from 3 to 5 at the Wilderness Station. So join us for World Turtle Day on Saturday, May 21st. Then Friday, May 27th, Patterson Park will be having their summer craft fair and jamboree. They'll have live music featuring star lifters. There will also be a few other bands there. We will have craft vendors, food vendors. There's information on the flyer if you're interested in being a craft vendor or a food vendor. You'd contact Patterson Park at 615-893-7439 if you're interested in being a vendor. And it is Friday, May 27th from 3 to 7 p.m., and it is free to attend. And then we all know that summertime is here when Borough Beach opens. That is the outdoor pool at Sportscom. So the opening day celebration will be Saturday, May 28th. The pool will be open from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and they will have games and music at the pool. And then, of course, 2 days later on Memorial Day, we will continue the celebration with our Memorial Day Madness, and that will be from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the Borough Beach. And then for those who would like to help us clean up our greenway, we have a stone's throw away on Saturday, June 4th from 9 a.m. to noon. It is free. All ages are welcome. We will be meeting at Pavilion number 3 at Old Fort Park, and then Melinda Tate will give everyone areas where they can go work on helping us keep our greenway clean. So it's a stone's throw away on Saturday, June 4th. And for more information on the events that I talked about and all of our other programs and events, you can go to our website at murfreesborotn.gov/parks. Check out one of our Facebook pages or contact our main office at 615-890-5333.
Lots going on as always, Becky. Thank you. All right, that concludes our agenda. Is there any other business to come before the commission?
Yeah, Dee, I wanted to ask something about the, I think it was the last city council meeting where they said something about the new park proposal on, is that west side that they?
West Park.
West Park. I think they said something about maybe acquiring the old YMAC building.
There was
whatever.
there was direction that was given to the administration to look at several things. There was two pieces of property that were proposed that came from our search that we did approximately almost 2 years ago. And then also the council wanted to look at two additional properties that may be a possibility for land. So they wanted to see 4 parcels of property that they could consider for West Park. Also, they wanted to go back and revisit looking at the YMCA. I know that they've engaged in some conversation about it. The price was too high. It was higher than, I think, what the appraisal was. So they wanted to go back and bring information back to that. So I know that Mr. Lyons, city manager, is doing that. And then also there is a piece of property that we own that's right beside Blackman High School, and they wanted us to look at that piece of property as a possible park site in the future, and maybe even another multi-purpose facility site. So that was the direction from council. We told them we'd be back in 30 days, so that'll be sometime in June. We'll get back with the council and report on our findings.
Right. Well, the thing that I guess I think the council said, I think the county mayor, Mayor Burgess, had some property, I think something like 500 acres out that way. But it seemed like the city council thought that was a conflict of interest. Now, to me, I don't see the purpose of building, having all these mini little parks. Now, and I don't really see a conflict of interest because he's the county mayor. If his price is, you know, my thing is if his price it meets our budget for the park and he has that much land, I don't know, we probably won't need all 500 acres. But if that part of town is growing so much, that could be the area. You know, I wouldn't, again, I'm not speaking for the mayor. I'm just saying if that is the ideal location and if his price is right, what the city needs, I wouldn't hold that against him because of his position. Now, if he wasn't the county mayor and if he had that land and the city wanted to buy it, it wouldn't be a problem. But I guess since of his position, we're saying, well, it's, you know, and could you elaborate on that do you remember that?
Lanny, can I elaborate on that a little bit? Because
sure.
I'm more on the council. Ron may want to do the same. But I'll assure you that it had nothing to do with conflict of interest or favoritism, or it had nothing to do with who owns the property when we're looking at property. The reason that I personally was opposed to pursuing that property was because it was based on, it's on a 2-lane substandard highway. It doesn't, the state doesn't have the money to improve that highway situation anytime in the near future. It's not even, well, it's being considered, but the money's not available.
Okay.
The property did not qualify in what I think the 2035 plan is directing us, which is more towards neighborhood parks. The magnitude of that many facilities in one place, I think, is not a prudent decision to trail to go down, in the sense that I think that if we put all the facilities in one location, then you significantly impact that area much more than you would be if you spread them over a different area, where you had baseball fields in one area, soccer fields in another area, and maybe a major sports facility is like a sports comp type facility in another area. You have less impact on that one area if you can disperse that crowd over a much larger side of the city. So it had nothing to do with who owned the property at all. It was simply a decision that, as a council member, that I looked at from the perspective of what is best for the quality of life of these communities that will be affected by it, whether we go with multiple small facilities or a major complex. And myself, and I think the majority of the council, agreed that we would be better off to diversify and spread these parks over a larger area.
Well, the only problem with that is, you have, say if you have a facility at 4 different locations or 3 different locations, you have someone's in charge that you got to pay, I guess, a head, instead of having one person like at Patterson or SportsCon, where you just have one person that's overhead and who's the director and getting paid, instead of having all these 4 different type guys, all of them receiving pay and all the payroll that you have. See, that's the only thing that my concern was, and some of the other people that talked to me about it, why we having so many parks placed in the city, because it only increased the payroll for the city. But now that you said that the highway and all that, it wasn't accessible, I can understand that. But I thought it was from my reports, it seemed like someone was saying that there was conflict of interest because he was the county mayor.
His title and position had nothing to do with that decision as far as the ownership of the property. I will say that with the legislature's recent actions of limiting annexation, it is outside the city, and it's not the city's responsibility to provide parks to the county as far as the taxpayers are concerned. We're trying to look at property that is more adjacent to the city or closer into the city, so that it's more accessible to city residents, and that's the reason for also wanting to diversify. Obviously, it's a lot easier to buy land in smaller segments than it is to buy it in a larger segment, because there's more availability of smaller segments. So it also improves the ability to buy although it's in city limits, it improves the price of the acreage in some situations. We did not get down to negotiating price on any of these properties so far. So the price of the property is completely unknown, whether or not it would have been a fantastic deal or whether or not it would have been not so fantastic deal. That was completely irrelevant. It had nothing to do with the decision making on that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Turner,
Thank you, Eddie.
If I could just say this too, one of the reasons we put out the RFP for looking at land is in the past, where we've had park and parklands, as we start develop those, and take Siegel Park. I'll give you Siegel Park, for example. Great soccer park. We were almost $3 million into that park before we put the first shovel in the ground, so to speak, for developing soccer fields, because we had to run the power line almost a mile down the road. We had to rebuild the sewer lift station. We ran into 6 wetlands that were on site. We had a tremendous amount of rock as we started putting the electrical lines through the middle. We had to rebuild Cherry Lane into a 4-lane road. And we had to do all that before we could develop the park. So one of the things that I've shared with council is that story. And as we look at land, look at the other cost as well. I know Mr. Smotherman said we don't want to buy so much house we can't put furniture in it, and to me that made a lot of sense. We want to make sure that when we look at a piece of property, that the development cost in terms of getting the infrastructure into the park is acceptable. If you have to expand roads and do things to handle the additional traffic or run sewer for a mile or whatever else you have to do, that's a big expense. So as we look at buying property, those will be considerations, and those were considerations when we went through the evaluation of the different properties that we looked at. So we have to look at that indirect cost as well as the direct cost of developing that sort of thing. And that was really more of the discussion I think the council had and some of the concerns, and that's why they asked us to come back with a 4 and look at the other site and then look at the availability of the Y as well.
Thanks, Lanny. Are there any other questions, comments for the good of the order?
I have one more, Mr. Chairman, and that is Spring Fling is this month. It starts May 23rd, runs through May 27th. If you want to keep up with Spring Fling, it's always the week before Memorial Day. Just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Parks and Recreation runs 3 of the 5 sports. We do soccer, tennis, and girls softball. And then, of course, MTSU handles track and field, and then all of the different high schools handle the baseball. But it's a great stimulator for our economy, and I know Dr. Bonner said it's a great recruiting tool for the university for bringing student athletes in and getting them to look at what we have here in Murfreesboro. So we want to encourage all of our residents and our businesses to support Spring Fling, come out, see some of the best competition, we say in the state, but really in the South. I mean, it's wonderful to come out and watch them. Just the level that these athletes play at is phenomenal. So I want to remind our residents of that.
All right. Thanks, Lanny. Anything else? If there is none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.